Sahil, hi. It's good to have you with us today.
Hey, hi Ashu, good to be here. Yeah, thanks for getting me here.
And this was a discussion I was looking forward for, right? Given that this is food, and and given that we are limited within our homes,
Yeah,
I think food is something that keeps us occupied, engaged, right? And also creative expression around the given conditions and times.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's one thing which is always been around for centuries, and people, look at it as one form of, spending the time out. Obviously, in this pandemic, it has, taken a beating. I mean, you were just thinking about it, even in world wars, I think, restaurants never shut. So for the first time, restaurants have had to shut in the pandemic,
Right,
right? So
right.
it's been a first for restaurants.
Interesting. Sahil, before we dive into understanding dine out better, the landscape of the dining out industry, a lot of stuff that you guys have been building, doing.
Right.
Would love to have you give us a quick round of introduction. There's some great work that you've been doing. Why don't you take us through that?
So yeah, it's been almost a decade now that we've been, sort of at it at Dine Out. It all started off with a idea where, me, Ankit, and Nikhil Vivek, we got together. We all four go a long way back, right? We know each other for the last 30 years, since childhood, right? And I was in the US and Ankit was in, London, and we've been using services in the US and UK, where people were using platforms to reserve, book their tables and stuff. And we used to come back to India and we saw that, there's nothing like that available in India. And we realized over the next, 4 or 5 years, as the internet revolution picks up. And mind you, like 2011-12 was a time when there were no apps also. There were no more
Right,
mobile apps, right? I mean, even a Flipkart was not only on desktop, right?
right,
So that's when we said that, this is something that we are really passionate about and we want to get down to doing it. And that's how we started, and launched Dine Out in 2012. And that's the genesis of the sort of story. And obviously, we've grown along a lot, from just being a B2C platform to being a full stack player with B2B sort of parts to our business.
right.
That's been our growth journey in the last sort of 9 years.
Sahil, was dine out your first? And is that what you directly did after college, or was there
No,
something
no,
before?
no, no, no. So I mean, I did my engineering. Post that I worked for a year or so in Bangalore. Then I did my MBA from IIM Kozhikode. Post that I was, sort of working for a couple of years with this analytics company called Mu Sigma. It's one of the largest analytic companies, and I was based out of the US with,
Right.
top clients like Microsoft, etc., working with those guys. And I was there like in 2010, 11, and where that's when I decided to take the plunge, where I said that I want to build something. I mean, always had that sort of passion of
Right.
building something of my own. And sometime in 2011 December is when decided that need to get down to doing this. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. Sahil, 2020 has been a very unreal year, right? And I think one industry, out of say a couple of industries, right, that has
Right.
had the most significant impact, and also it was not limited to just the founders and entrepreneurs within that industry. It also, had a huge labor force which was involved, right? Was food, right? You know. What has been the scale of impact, right?
Yeah.
All of us have been talking about the kind of losses, but these are cursory numbers, right? None of us really know the scale of impact that has happened, right? So if you could just give us a sense of that, that would be helpful.
So what's been the impact on the industry, right? That's what you're
Yes,
basically asking.
yes,
So I mean, the impact has been, like I said, huge, right? Because this is one industry which never expects a shutdown, right? Like I
right,
told you, even in World War One, two, restaurants never shut down. I mean, that was the
right,
only source of entertainment available to people, even in the worst of times. This
right.
was the first time ever that restaurants have had to shut down, which they never planned for ever when they opened up, right? That
Mm-hmm.
due to external reasons they'll have to shut down. And the
Right.
impact has been that almost about, as per our data, at least about 30% of the restaurants have shut down over the past 1 year, right?
Okay.
And these are smaller restaurants. Obviously, the larger
Right.
chains have managed to stay up. In fact, for them, it has been good in the sense for some of them because people are being attracted towards brands, right, for safety purposes
Correct.
or where they believe that hygiene conditions will be good. So in
Right.
fact, a lot of the traffic which would go to a standalone would go to a brand, which is from a consumer perspective, a more sort of respectable place to be at, right?
Right.
So in fact, the impact has been on the smaller sort of outlets and categories, and some of the bigger brands have in fact been post or obviously shutting down some of their outlets. They've been able to open up new outlets as well in other locations at better costs and stuff. So they've been able to streamline their operations better. So that's been the current sort of situation, which also sort of points to the fact that over the next couple of years, you'll see a lot more organized players entering the industry, right? With bigger money, where chains are there, sort of managing restaurants in the country, right? Simple example being, if you look at the US, right, 75% of the restaurants there are chain brands, right, organized sector, multiple outlet, multi-brand categories, and only 25% is your single owner-driven sort of outlets, right? And
Right.
the story in India pre-pandemic was reverse, right? 75% was single-owned sort of outlets, and 25% was chain brands. So this will probably shift towards more chain brands and 50-50, and then probably 70-30. I don't know. But that's the direction you'll go in. So it's actually an opportunity for more organized money or private equity money to come into the system, because one thing is clear, that the industry will grow back and come back
Right.
up on its feet, right? We saw that very quickly in a short period of 1 year. So from March to March last year, there was a complete shutdown till almost like about September, right? So we
Right.
lost 6 months as an industry. But then post October, it was fantastic, right? Like by March 2020, we at Dine Out were almost back to pre-pandemic levels, right?
Mhm.
So March 21 was exactly the same as March 20,
Right.
which is something we never expected. So sitting in August, September 20, we were thinking that, March 21, even if we're at about 50, 70% of March 2020, we'll be happy, but we managed to be 100%, right? Which
Right.
shows you the fact that the resilience of the industry, that people do want to dine out, restaurants are here to stay. So it has shown the glimpse that what is the future. Obviously, this wave has been really bad, so it will take a little bit more time and stuff, but eventually I think we'll get there, and probably the big money guys will also realize that, and you will see a lot more money flowing into it eventually.
Right.
A bit delayed, probably 6 months from now, but yeah, I think that's how we believe the industry will sort of shape up in the next 6 to 12 months.
Sahil, what are some of the key things that have changed for restaurant industry forever? Right. What is 2020 done or 2021 done? Right.
So
What are
what
some of those
is
key things?
right? So I think one of the biggest changes which has happened in the restaurant industry and probably in a lot of other industries is um, ownership of the customer, or using tech as a mainstream part of the business and not just a good to have sort of solution, right? So
Mhm.
pre-pandemic, most of your restaurateurs, even large chains, were working out of Jugaad, right? I mean, the data
Right.
was not proper. A lot of things were on Excel, and a lot of paperwork was there, and everything was not organized, right?
Right.
Now, everyone has realized, not just from a cost perspective, but just from a future growth perspective, they need to have tech as a central core part of their operations, right? It is
Right.
not just a good to have. And pre-pandemic, when we were selling our software, our SaaS solution in Resto, it was a push product where I had to go and convince the restaurant that, boss, you need this tech, right? It's
Right.
important for you to store your customer data, retarget your customers, don't depend on third parties and stuff. I had to convince the restaurateur,
Right.
right? Now that's not the case anymore. It's the opposite. It's a pull. Now the restaurateurs are coming out and saying that, hey, we need this tech, right? I need this technology to reach out to my consumers, own my consumers, be more cost efficient, right? Be more intelligent on my marketing. I can't just throw random money and
Right.
expect people to come in. I need to be more intelligent about it, do more segmentation,
Right.
personalization, all of that, right? So I think that is something which is going to happen in India. I mean, we saw that obviously Shopify, did that revolution in the US,
Right.
right? With all SMEs, right? It's more than it's a unicorn and beyond, right? I think that has not happened in India, right? And I think that will happen in India now across industries, not just the restaurant industry. So I
Right.
think that trend is here to stay, and we want to obviously capitalize in the restaurant industry space and capitalize on that piece, because
Right.
that is what we started off with our Inresto sort of thought process way back in 2015-16. So we were sort of ready for this pre-pandemic. It's just that what we expected will happen 2 years from now, it's gotten fast forwarded by a couple of years, right? So I think that's a permanent change in the way restaurants operate.
Right. Sahil, one thing which was, which has been very prominent about food business, right, as a whole, that, it was a business which had a massive, utilization and consumption of cash, right? How has, UPI and the payments ecosystem impacted the food business? Has it fast-tracked its, the push towards institutionalization, digitalization, like you said, right? There are in-restaurant mechanics, systems that are now the adoption is faster, right? Did
Right.
payments also sort of, push this adoption?
No, so payments had been scaling up gradually, right? So
Right.
Dine Out is like the largest sort of payment platform inside the restaurant industry where people can
Mhm.
go in and pay their bills at the restaurant via the Dine Out app. And I'm talking of the a little sort of high-end category, right? Casual dining and above. If
I'm
I right.
I'm coming from a macro standpoint, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
correct, correct. So obviously, I mean, the restaurants were heavily cash dependent, right? And that
right,
is where they used to be. The
sure,
penetration, even now, I wouldn't say is too high for digital payments, right? I think
right,
if it was zero, probably it has gone up to 10, 15%. I think there is still a
okay,
big sort of,
yeah,
push there. Yeah, I mean, so I think the usage of cards has increased, right? So, I mean,
right,
when I say, but that's still an offline swiping of the card, right? I'm not
okay,
using the app to sort of pay my
right,
bill, right? So I would say
interesting,
that it is still about 80-20, where probably digital transactions are 50%
right,
because of cards and debit card sort of transactions, and
sure,
50% cash. But within just online and offline, if I were to categorize cash and debit credit cards inside the restaurants as offline, and payments done via apps like Dine Out, Paytm, PhonePe, Google Pay, etc., as the digital part of the ecosystem,
right,
that is
right,
still really small right now. I think that
okay,
has massive potential for growth over time, because essentially in restaurant experience is still pretty offline, right? I think
right,
there is a massive opportunity there. So the trend has started, but there's a long way to go to sort of for it to capture, let's say, 80-90% of the market share. Because see, online ordering is all digital now, right?
correct,
Because you're ordering through Zomato, Swiggy, Paytm, PhonePe, whatever, right? So I think there the restaurants know that 90% of their transactions are going to be digital
right,
transactions, right? But inside the restaurant, I think that is still yet to sort of take off in a big way. Yeah, and I think post pandemic that will, right? I mean, again, like I said, last 6 months showed us a brief glimpse of how that might happen.
right. Interesting. Sahil, we've known each other for a very long time. I have seen the journey of Dine Out, right?
Right.
I'm going to take a step back, right? I'm going to take a step back, and I have seen it evolve, right? Uh, I think there is from purely being a table reservation platform to now sort of owning the complete supply chain. I think there's some very, very interesting work that has happened through the process, right? Why don't you take us
Yeah.
through your journey and the evolution that has happened, say, since inception in 2012?
Right. So in 2012, when we started, right, we always wanted to start with the B2B side of the business, while
Right.
where we're giving a software to the restaurant and
Sure.
start from there, build that ecosystem the way sort of Open Table did it probably in the United
Right.
States, right? But very early on, we realized that the industry is just not ready to have software or tech. This is, I'm talking about
Hmm.
2012.
Right.
We went to restaurateurs and they were like, "Yaar, pehle aap dhanda leke aao, right? Get me the money first. Show me the money."
Right.
Right. So
Right.
that's when we decided that we need to go the opposite here, and we
Right.
started with the B2C platform, which was Dine Out, where I can gain the trust of the restaurant, start
Right.
sending them some business. And that's when, probably in 2015, post our Times Internet sort of acquisition, we realized that now we need to, now is the time, right? Because now 2015 was when there was a lot of money flowing into the overall ecosystem. Mobile apps were starting to come out, and we felt that this is the time where restaurants also will start gradually understanding that tech is something that they need. And that's
Right.
when we acquired Inresto as a business. It was a very small early startup working at 30 restaurants, but we saw the potential and we said we need to go deep into the space. And we sort of acquired Inresto, which was a complete CRM management tool for the restaurants, from reservation management to CRM management, loyalty management, and so on, right?
Right.
So that was one part. And as we kept on sort of scaling that over 2015-18, we realized we need to go even deeper, right? And POS is the central part of the kitchen restaurant operation
Right.
ecosystem. And in 18 is when we decided to acquire Talkus, right, which was a large POS player in the restaurant ecosystem. And because we had a thought process, right, we were going with a thought process that we want to be a full stack business, right, from
Right.
B2C to B2B, where I'm
Correct.
giving end-to-end platform to my restaurant partners, right? So our every step has been sort of driven with that overall sort of vision, right?
Right.
And post that, we've now become like a complete full stack B2B, B2C player, which nobody else in the country or even I would say globally possesses, right? Because
Right.
even globally on the B2B side, you've got players who are doing only the POS or only the loyalty management system or only the reservation management system, whereas we
Right.
have all of these as different modules as a part of the B2B stack, right?
Right.
So that's how our growth has been. On the B2C side, also, it's been pretty interesting, right? So I think on the B2C side, we realized again we want to go deep into multiple sort of categories, and then and 2018-19 were like 2 great years where we wanted to scale it up even further, and we acquired Gourmet Passport as a business, which was a
Mm-hmm.
premium subscription product to cater
Right.
to cater to the premium audience, right? Where we were giving like a 1+1 offering at the top 2,000 restaurants in
Sure.
the country, including 5 stars. And it was a pretty interesting amount, right? We're charging almost about $2,000 for an annual subscription, and we had like almost about 100,000 odd subscribers, which came in like 2019. 2020 was much higher at about
Right.
300,000, right? So so that was one way, because we realized that once you get them as a premium subscriber, right, the lifetime value, the retention, the cohorts of these users are much better, right? And we
Right.
wanted to have good quality users, and that's the reason why we sort of scaled that up. Now, obviously, it's rebranded to Dine Out Passport and
Right.
scaling up even further, right? And the last piece, which happened during the pandemic for us, is we realized that um, people want new experiences, right? So
Right.
people want newer forms of entertainment, more organized. And there's this events company called Steppin' Out, right? So we sort of
Mm-hmm.
acquired them as well, where
Okay.
we realized that Dine Out needs to be a part of um, every user's journey whenever they're thinking of stepping out, right? It could be for a dinner, for an event, it could be a musical concert, a comedy night, everything, right?
Right.
So our
Wow.
intent is to be a full stack entertainment sort of platform where people can come in and book sort of various sort of categories of events as well, right? So now that is well integrated into our system. And
Right.
just in Feb we did a pretty large format event with Lucky Ali, and then we were in Bangalore, and then we've done 100 plus comedy nights inside
Mm-hmm.
restaurants in Q1 of this year. So I mean, all this pre pandemic, right, for between Jan to March.
Yeah.
That's something which we did, and we saw a great response because people were looking out for new format of events, right? Food festivals, movie nights. So another interesting concept of movie nights, wherein
Right.
a 5 star we have a complete setup of a large screen, and people can watch iconic movies from the past and stuff like that, and you can book tickets on the Dine Out app, right? So way in which we're looking at the ecosystem, and
Right.
that's how we've sort of scaled both on B2C side and B2B side. And we're just waiting for things to settle down, and people are vaccinated all over and ready to go
Right.
out, and we give them the right platform where they can actually go and have a nice time and get away from all the stress which we
What
are undergoing right now.
of what you tell me, right? I think the expanse of now the overall offering, right, is rebranding on the cards.
No, not really. I think Dine Out is a great name. I
Right.
think it is maybe a repositioning, you could say, but
Right.
not rebranding, right? I mean, Dine Out is the core, right? I mean, everything has been driven from that word, right? It's
Right.
all about going out, dining out, stepping out, right? So I think that's something which resonates with our customers.
Right.
And Inresto has been our brand on the B2B side, where we're saying
Sure.
this is the tech inside the restaurant. So
Right.
Inresto, right? So I think I think we're fine with what brands we have. We just want to scale them up now in India, and Inresto
Right.
is something we're looking to scale globally, right? So I think there we've now ventured on to other markets like Middle East, Saudi Arabia,
Interesting.
and so on, where we're looking to scale our B2B product globally and be a global B2B SaaS platform. So that's the
Fantastic.
overall expanse.
Great. Sahil, just take me through some of the matrices. You've had a very interesting journey, right? If you could give us a rundown of that, that would be nice.
Um,
On the consumer
I
side,
mean, sorry.
on the consumer side, if you could give us some matrices, right, that you've been tracking
Uh,
are important for the business.
Consumer sides, I mean, we've got more than about what 8-9 million plus app downloads. We see it almost about 3 million plus people on a monthly basis, 3 to 4 million at our peak, just pre-pandemic.
Right.
In terms of transactions, we are driving more than about uh, what about 2,000 crore, 2,500 crores of GMV to restaurant industry on an annual basis.
Wow.
Through our app, particularly, I mean, the payment itself would be close to about 400-500 crores. The rest would be, offline. But yeah, I mean, that's the overall sort of GMV that we drive for the restaurant industry.
How many restaurant partners currently, sir?
So right now, close to about 20,000 odd restaurant partners, B2C, B2B combined in total.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually talk to you about Bharat as well, right? Which is tier 2 and tier 3, right? And we've had this conversation often, right? But I'll have that in a separate question. One thing that I want to actually pick up with you, right, is that you've integrated basically payments beautifully in your ecosystem, right? And I think you've gone on to become one of the largest in restaurant payment players, right? Tell us a little more about that.
So, I mean, so what we realize is that, in India, reservations is not enough, right? Because it's only a 20-25% use case, right? But payment is a 100% use case where every time I'm inside a restaurant, I need to make a payment, right? So how can we capture all the use cases for our user, right? And that's when in 2018, we decided to enter the payment sort of space where we wanted to be in the flow of money and give a guaranteed sort of ROI to our restaurant partners. Because with reservations, there are multiple challenges, right? People might book, cancel, so on and so forth. Payment is clear, right? I mean, there's no questions asked. The payment is done, it's done. The restaurant has received it, right? And it makes the life of the user very simple, right? Because there are multiple instances where you have a last minute plan, you've just entered the restaurant, you've booked through some other platform, but then when you're actually making the payment, you want to have the benefit in terms of offers, etc., and so on and so forth. And that's where we want it to be. And that's something that we've scaled over the last couple of years, right? And then obviously from our perspective as a business, it gives us a lot of data around, user behavior, traction, how much money is being spent by the user, what is the usual sort of capacity or GMV for a restaurant, which on top of which you can build multiple things on top, right? Whether it is lending for the restaurant or other various categories in which you might want to venture. That's not something we've done right now immediately, but I mean those are future possibilities based on the data that we are sort of collecting on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Very interesting. That was in fact while you were talking about that, right? And given the expanse of solutions that you have, and with Inrestro, where you're doing a B2B trade, right? And now with payments, you've really sort of plugged it in. My next question was that, is working capital financing for restaurants on the cards?
We've thought about it. We've dabbled with it for the last 1.5 years, but I think it's still a bit early, right? I think Zomato, Swiggy have also given it a shot. It's just that, restaurateurs are somehow able to get money from various sources at a much lower
working capital
sort of. And they're able to sort of manage somehow, right? And the rate of return or the effort required for me to do that is just not sort of justifying it, right? And the only way it actually will make sense is if I can start doing it on my own loan book, right? And not through a third party partner, right? Where I'm just getting a simple commission on top, right? So until and unless we reach a confidence level where I am in a capacity to build my own lending loan book, till then it will not actually make sense to scale it up in a large way.
Interesting. Sahil, how exciting is the idea of Bharat, right? I think, what has happened in 2020 and I think beyond, right, is that there was a difference between, say, a metro and a tier 2 and a tier 3, right, in terms of how we consumed, availability of things, exposure, so on and so forth, right? But I think what this year particularly did was that, it limited us all, right? It didn't really matter if you were, say, in a Kanpur or a Singapore or a Delhi or a Bangalore, right? You're essentially operating out of that 2.5, 3,000 square feet, right? And that was that. And everybody was consuming from the same channels, right? And those 3 or 4 or 5 screens, right? And essentially consuming very similar kind of stuff, right? Which now brings in a lot of predictability in that entire scheme of things, right? So basis all of what is happening, right? How exciting is the idea of Bharat for Dine Out, right? How have you been doing in a tier 2, tier 3 market?
It's huge, actually, right? Yeah, I mean, it has scaled. So, 2019 is when we started going to smaller tier 2, tier 3 cities from 8 cities, we expanded to 20 cities, right? Where we
Right.
went to smaller cities like Ludhiana, Kochi, Jaipur,
Right.
Chandigarh, Indore,
Right.
and so on, Lucknow, so on and so forth, right? And they had been scaling pretty well, right? Even pre-pandemic, we were seeing great demand. In fact, both side demand and supply. You had top restaurateurs
Right.
opening up outlets in these smaller cities like Lucknow, Chandigarh, and doing great GMV. Like,
Right.
and even a brand like Social, I think their highest grossing outlet was in Chandigarh, not in
Right.
Delhi or Mumbai, right?
Right.
So that's how we were seeing the demand growing in tier two, tier three cities. Um, but what the pandemic has done is that it has accelerated even further. And I'll tell
Right.
you how, right? Because a lot of the people have moved back from the metro cities to these tier two, tier three cities to live with
Right.
their families or
Yes.
with their parents, right? And now the organizations are also not forcing these people to sort of come back or be in the metro cities, right? Because
Mhm.
work from here is here to stay, right? Whatever said and done. That's one big change, right? So now you've got people who were living in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, now living in Kanpur, Udaipur, Lucknow,
Right.
right? Kochi, expecting the same level of quality of service in those cities
Right.
that they had in a Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, right? So now suddenly our market size has increased, right? Because now these people who've gone back are going to educate more people in those cities that hey, these are platforms through which you can do X, Y, Z things, and these are the benefits, right? And the platform needs to be there, right? So right now if I'm not there in that city, I'm getting requests, right? Like Kanpur, Dine Out is not there, or in Ranchi, Dine Out is not there. But a lot of people who were in Bangalore have moved to a Kanpur or Ranchi, and they're saying like, when are you launching Dine Out there, right? Because
Right.
they want to experience
Right.
Dine Out there as well because they've seen it in action in a Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore.
Right.
So suddenly, I think the market size of or the idea of Bharat has suddenly exploded. I think now post pandemic, and everyone will be rushing to be in these cities because people want these services, so you've got to be where the customer is there, right? And it's a great thing for the ecosystem because restaurateurs get the benefit, the consumers get the benefit, we can expand.
Right.
So I think it will scale up even faster once things sort of settle down.
Does that also mean that you'll have to, you'll have to, incent is going to be little, you'll not have to do as much to seed the market. Does that also mean that?
Possibly, I think possibly. I think there is a significant chance that you could do it at a much lower cost because you already have a sitting audience waiting for it to come to that city.
Right.
So I think, yeah, I think you might get a ready set of consumers who are waiting to sort of use your platform in these new tier two, tier three cities for sure. I think that's a possibility.
Interesting. Sahil, what are so when this population has moved from say a metro to their hometowns, right? And these tier one, tier two cities, right? Uh, do the bill values continue to remain the same, or is there a little bit of a dip there in terms of their spends in these markets, or has it gone
It's
up?
not.
Right. I'm just
So overall, the bill value has gone up, right? I mean, post
right.
like in the month of Jan to March, we saw like overall whatever the bill values we were seeing, that overall bill value has kind of gone up for the platform itself.
Right.
Uh, Multiple reasons because either the restaurants price the dishes higher or lesser discounts, or for whatever
Right.
reason, consumers were anyways comfortable paying because they just wanted an outlet to be out. They were stuck up at home for the last 6 8 months,
Right.
so a 10%, 20% higher was not something that they were willing to sort of not go out because of that. Right. So I
Right.
think overall bill value went up, and the gap between metro cities and tier two cities is actually not that large.
Right.
Sometimes you feel that there'll be a huge value in gap in the bill value, but it's not more than a 5-10% bill value, and it also varies by region, right? So, for
Right.
example, like a city like Chandigarh, it's actually
Hmm.
higher than Delhi, Bombay,
Right.
right? There's loads of money there. People like to spend money, so there it is very different. Whereas obviously a city like Kochi will see a much lower bill value, right? So it depends on the geography, the actual demographic in that city. It
Right.
varies a lot on that as well. But like a city like a Jaipur, Lucknow, pretty standard, right? It won't
Right.
vary too much even from a tier one city, maybe a 5% gap, more or less. Not like you won't see like a 20% gap in the average bill value or anything of that sort.
Interesting. Sahil, also, a question that I have, how is the new and concept restaurants going across these markets, right? So, for example, is sushi as, for example, the way it's consumed? Do you think there's a similar excitement in a Kanpur around that?
No, I think that will take some time. It won't be
Sure.
so soon. I think,
Right.
and the problem will be on the supply side. Like the cost of running that sort of a specialty restaurant is
Right.
definitely higher than a standard North Indian, Italian, Chinese sort of restaurant,
Sure.
right? I mean, there's a cost of the chef, then the cost of, expertise, right? Because there are very limited chefs for these kind of things. If they
Right.
leave, how do you have a
Ingredients.
replacement? So ingredients. So lot multiple challenges on the supply
Right.
side, first of all, for it to be making sense for the restaurant partner. And the demand is also not that high, right? So I mean, the demand that I'll get in Delhi, Bombay will be far higher than a Kanpur or a
Right.
Lucknow also. So I think that is a bit far off. I think it'll take some time for those concepts sort of picking up in smaller cities. But then again, right, like I said,
But that makes it
that
long.
concept,
That makes it also long tail, right?
yes, yes, and but for that concept, probably then again, if you go to a city like Chandigarh, it'll do
Right.
brilliant. Go to Goa. I don't know what you want to call Goa. Goa is probably, you would think it's tier two, but it's actually ultra luxury now, right? It's the
Correct.
opposite, right? So
Right.
a Chandigarh or a Goa, it'll do brilliant. I mean, every top restaurateur is opening a restaurant left, right, and center in Goa
Right.
because they know people will travel post pandemic and there will be demand for these kind of exotic stuff and cuisines and all in a place like Goa. So I think that's how
Right.
it'll work. Right?
I
So
think Goa has been a standout market for you, right? I think you've always been very excited about Goa as
so
a
I
market.
mean, it everybody thought, but
Right.
it didn't grow that much. I mean, it was very
Okay.
local. People thought it's very hard to conquer that market, and you know, customer experience and all is very difficult because the top places are so booked. You can't really book a place. How do you manage all that? But now I think overall the thought is that Goa is like going to set a benchmark for the rest of the country post
Right.
pandemic because there's just a feeling that now there's going to be immense tourism, people
Right.
going to Goa,
Right.
experiencing new places, and then when they come back, they might want to have a similar experience in their cities, right?
Hmm.
So I think from that perspective, people might want to open their marquee brands or top restaurants there just to create like a cross country presence. So I think you'll see a lot of large chains sort of opening up restaurants in Goa very soon.
Interesting. Sahil, one thing that I want to understand, right? When you're talking about Bharat, right? Is there a different set of metrics that you follow? Vis-a-vis what you would do sort of for a much more mature market like a tier A market, right? Or the larger matrices remain the same. My sense is when you're operating in a new market, right, which is say relatively new to the experiences that you're trying to offer. I think there's going to be more or a deeper concentration of adoption, right? Is that a correct understanding, or is there a different
Not,
way to look at it?
not really. I think the metrics remain the same for us, and consumer behavior remains more or less similar. It's just
Right.
that it's a smaller population and small nuances in every city, right? Like I
Right.
said, Chennai, there would be different due to the language. Jaipur would be a little different. So I mean,
Right.
there'll be small nuances, but overall, I think the metrics sort of remain same for us when we look at it from a business standpoint.
Okay. And
Yeah.
do you calibrate for features when you are entering these markets?
I mean, these are more, most of the things are on the supply side, right? So
Right.
there are different laws in a city like Chennai might have different alcohol laws versus West Bengal, Kolkata. So
Right.
so more on the B2B side, right? So the software needs to take care of these sort of laws and other sort of nitty-gritties, while booking and all those things, right? So for example, uh, Chennai, they have a system that there needs to be a booking uh, in a club before they can allow, or that person needs to be classified as a member or something of that sort. So software takes care of those nitty gritties which are local to Chennai, right? So those kind of nuances are there in
But
these
you're essentially saying that at a B2B level, yes, that is there. You'll have to sort of factor in those nuances. But at a B2C level,
Yes,
largely the product continues to remain the same.
yes,
I
yes.
think just possibly the language angle that you would sort of introduce, right?
Absolutely.
In
Yeah.
the
Like, I
local
mean,
language.
training restaurants, right? I mean, I have to train a guy in Chennai will be very, very different from
Right.
training a guy in Delhi, right? The language
Right.
is a big difference, right? So those kinds of things happen.
Okay. So, I've always continued to believe that, dining out as a whole, right? I mean, it's a subset of the larger consumption from a consumer's wallet, standpoint, right? Across all the activities that he or she would do in a month, right? Or in a year. I've continued to believe that, dining out in itself is a fantastic category, right? And it also has that possibility of for a player to become a super app in the process, right? Where you can literally sort of book a restaurant or book a, whatever, right? Your experience, book a cab, and then the entire continuous sort of a thing that you can build, right? Is that something which is on the cards? I mean, do you think of it that way, or you're very clear that this is essentially what we are for? How you travel, how you get there, what are the other things that you use and utilize is not something that we want to sort
See,
of
it's a
interfere in.
race. It's I don't know. I just feel it's a race to the bottom. I mean,
Right,
this whole super app thing is obviously coming out of China, right? I mean, with
right,
WeChat and all these guys sort of doing it, and
right.
in India, you have the biggest guys sort of gunning for it, right? So
Mhm.
Flipkart, Amazon, Paytm, PhonePe, Google Pay. Everybody wants to be a super app, right?
Sure.
And when you have those kinds of guys sort of trying to be a super app, I don't think that is a space we want to be in unless you're giving us $1 billion of funding today, right?
Right.
It's not
Right.
going to happen, right? So I think you need like really extreme large money flowing into any business to
Right.
think of it from a super app perspective. So I think even in India, you won't see any mid-size sort of guy thinking of the super app sort of phenomenon. Only the
Right.
large guys like Paytm, Flipkart, are sort of thinking of it in that manner, right? I think even Make My Trip, etc., tried it. They couldn't
Right.
really sort of scale that. A very small example, even during the pandemic, you saw Swiggy Zomato trying to do just an extension of food delivery, which was grocery delivery.
Right.
Again, that was very hard, right? Because you've got specialized guys like Big Basket, Grofers, whatever, like these guys sort of doing a fantastic job there, right? So
Right.
I think it's a very niche market. Getting that whole super app thing going in India is not going to be easy. I think
Right.
obviously that is the maybe the golden goose that everyone is chasing, but it's going to be hard. I think unless there's a significant amount of traffic coming in, and
Right.
you've got a lot of hyper local delivery happening, and we're still like way off from where China is, right? I mean,
Right.
China, the number of uh, daily orders is still about 20-30x of what you have in India for anything, right? So until we reach that level of you know density in our population, that my cost of delivery comes really low, and stuff like that, I think till then a super app is a distant sort of thought. I think I mean, you have the capability to book flights on Flipkart now, right?
Right.
But I don't go to Flipkart to book flights. I mean, I'm still using a Make My Trip or whatever to book my flights, right? I mean, you still use your Expedia to book your hotels. I mean, I
Right.
don't know how and when that's really going to change. So I'm a firm believer, at least for now, that wherever you are, if you can go deep down and be the best and capture that entire market,
Right.
especially at the scale at which we are. I mean, we don't have unlimited funds. Had we had that, probably I think you have that bias of thinking, right?
Sure.
Depending on the funds in your bank, right? So I think that's where we are sort of headed right now. Um, Probably, I don't know, a few years down the line, we might be a part of some super app. Maybe, I don't know, if we do things right.
Right. Very interesting.
So
I like that. I
uh,
like the clarity of thought, right? I think
yeah.
this is a question that I've asked not just to you but a bunch of other founders as well, right? And I think what I get, and one thing which is common across all conversations is that I think everybody understands that there is a certain delivery complexity, right? And as soon as they integrate that, even if there's a different service provider, right? There could be an Ola, Uber, which is integrated to a certain system, right? Nobody wants to absorb that delivery risk in their ecosystem, right? And I think that just makes it, uh, you know,
Yeah.
uh, and I think nobody wants to sort of get into that zone, where that a bad delivery in somebody else's ecosystem can affect your business, right? I think nobody wants to absorb that risk in their core operations, which is
Right. I
uh,
mean, see, for the super app, you'll need to own the entire chain, right?
correct,
Just having a partnership with 10 guys, that I'll have one guy with grocery delivery, one guy with
right,
flights, one guy with hotel, just integrating with their platform, and you being the front of that is not going to
right,
work. Unless you
right.
own the entire thing, it's going to be impossible. And now owning 10 different things, you can
It's
imagine the
very
amount of
difficult,
money and
right,
execution that will require.
right.
So
Interesting. Sahil, Zomato's IPO is a very debated, topic across all quarters, right? How do you see that? I mean, are you excited about that? I think in general with what is happening.
no, I think it's a great step, right? I think a listing. is a step in a great direction for the overall ecosystem. It just gives a lot of confidence to everyone around, including Indian and international investors, that there is an end game, there is an exit, or I mean, because we've not seen that right here in India as of now. You've seen a few acquisitions, but listings have been fair and far, few and far, right? So I think from that perspective, for the overall ecosystem, it's a great sort of step. What it means for Zomato themselves personally, I don't know. I mean, they know it best, and I think they must have done the due diligence, etc. Sitting from outside, obviously, it just feels that there could be challenging times. Competing with Swiggy, who is not listed versus they are, because of the compliance and stuff. How much you can burn, you're answerable to a lot more people. Could be good, bad. I don't know. I mean, I'm in no position to sort of comment on that, but those will be the interesting things to see, that how those sort of dynamics play out between at least these two guys. That will be interesting to see.
Sahil, you've had some exciting journey, right? You, Ankit, Vivek, Nikhil, you've had some exciting journey, right? Of building this for such a long time, right? What have been some very interesting observations in the process, right? You sort of entered with a certain assumption saying that, listen, this is how it should be, right? And what you sort of, while you were interacting with the audience, your consumer, and you said, this is something that we did not anticipate, right? What are some of those interesting things that have happened in the journey?
I mean, multiple, right? I mean, whenever we were going out in the market, 14, 15, 16, that was a period where everyone would ask us that, why are you doing this? Why can't Zomato replicate this, right? They have everything in their arsenal. And you're like, focus, right? I mean, they're focused on something completely different. We're focused on completely different, like same as a super app question, right? And we're like, it's hard to replicate stuff until they're focused on it, right? And they never, properly got into the whole dining out or a booking sort of platform, right? And they shifted gears from being a listings platform to a delivery platform while competing with Swiggy for the big funds, right? So again, that was a constant question which was asked to us, and till date, I don't see them sort of, going into that direction. Like, why can't Zomato can do everything they want, but they haven't, right? Because there is a certain expertise that we have, and why we want to do that. Same question in 2018 when we were launching payments, right? Again, the same question was, why are you guys doing this? Paytm can do this. Paytm can easily do a much larger job in this, right? Or a better job. And we were like, no, I think they might be good in the QSR space or in the small thela walas, but nobody is opening a Paytm app today in a olive bar and kitchen or a bar at the end of the night to sort of pay their bills. Or, that's something that is an unconquered space. And even today, I think their presence in that particular category where dine out exists is extremely low. And we've managed to sort of scale up massively in that category, right? I think.
Please go. Sorry.
Yeah. No, so I'm saying that, at multiple steps, you're always asked this question, and you just need to have that confidence as a founder that, this is something where there is a gap and which you can fill better than other folks out there, even though just from the outside, it looks like everybody else is much better positioned than you to sort of fill up that gap in the user journey or in the user problem segment. I think that's one interesting thing
I think execution is where the intelligence is, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Sahil, what I meant was with the question that I asked, my intention of asking that question was that, has there been a contribution, from the consumers in shaping the way business is today?
Right. Absolutely. So that has been huge. Right? So again, going by the same question, when in 2012 we were going to restaurant partners, right? People are going to book their table. So the restaurateur is like, why is anyone going to book a table? Book kaun karta hai table, right? And we were like, no, this is a trend which will change, right? People will want this. And there was this restaurateur in Delhi. He's like, chalo, first you go and acquire 50 restaurants. I will be the 51st restaurant on your platform. I don't think you can even acquire 50 restaurants who will come on the platform for booking. And after 10 days, we were back at his door and saying, Ki chalo, let's sign up now. We've got these 50 restaurants, right? So, and that happened in 2012. And over 2012 to 2015, 16, the percentage of people reserving shot up massively, right? And I'm talking about that era. Like now, obviously, it is even more, right? 19, 20, now with the pandemic, people want to be sure they will get the table when they're going with social distancing, etc. It will become even more important. But I'm saying that people just doubted the fact that are people ever going to reserve. So obviously, I'm not saying that it has become 100% or it is still a large use case. But if let's say earlier 5% people were reserving their table, at least 30% are reserving today, right? So that trend has happened, right? And that is something which consumers obviously supported. Same way for payments also. I think the restaurants, like you said, is a more of a cash industry. So they're like, why are people going to pay through the app? And we're like, no, there is a reason, and we can drive better traffic to you through it. And eventually that also worked out, and it's a very seamless sort of direction in which our payments are scaling, right? So from probably 2% of digital payments, it's at least at about 7 or 8% today, right? It's growing in that direction, and people are more than happy to make those digital payments, and it will scale up even faster. So I think those have been interesting sort of consumer trends that we sort of noticed over the past few years.
And that's also help you shape up your product and the way forward.
Correct.
Right?
And it shaped up to a lot of decisions for us, right? Like so even the acquisition that we did, right? I mean, with the Gourmet Passport acquisition, there was a clear need of a subscription product in the market, or stepping out in the pandemic, in the middle of pandemic, we acquired, because we clearly saw that events as a space is going to blow up, right? So even though it is counterintuitive कि यार pandemic हो गया है, कौन बाहर जाएगा event में, why will it happen? But that's not how humans behave, or that's not how history has taught us how things will change, right? So obviously there is a lot of negativity right now, a lot of question marks as to why people will do that, but we know that 6 months out it will be a different world, and people will be sort of going out looking for newer experiences, at which point having those events will be a great thing on the platform, right? It's like how Warren Buffett would say, right? Buy the stock when everyone is selling it, right? And when there is extreme fear, right? So I think that's how we are sort of dealing with that.
Sahil, what are the next 2 years like? I'm not saying 5, right? I think we're just in 2 dynamic times, right? So I think 5 is just I think it'll be overarching to sort of this thing. But what are the next 2 years?
Next 2 years, I think they look fantastic to us. I think we can achieve hockey stick growth going in post-pandemic into the B2C side, both on our payments platform as well as the event side that we're very excited about. And on the B2B side, we're very excited about the international market. We've got a lot of customers now in the Middle Eastern market, and we're looking at other markets as well. And sitting out of India, obviously, cost of the technology is much lower than what is being built in Europe or US, right? And if we can sort of target those markets and scale up in these international markets, I think that's something that we're really excited. So 2 years from now, I think B2B international and the growth in the B2C business is something we'll be looking at.
And what are some of the exciting Indian cities that we're going to experience by now then?
I think Goa. I think I'm very excited about Goa. I think it's going to be a standout city. Like whatever has been happening is going to go up at least about 3-4x from whatever you've seen. I think that's how I feel it's going to play out. So let's see. It's going to become like a hot destination, not just for Indians, even for tourists coming out for looking at marquee events happening in Goa, like how you would say that things are happening in an Ibiza or whatever. Like you'll have stuff happening in Goa also. Hopefully, let's see.
That is some positivity, right? I think that's very also. I think that excitement is important, right? I think around the time that we are, I think that excitement is important. Sahil, you've been a mentor, you've been an investor in a lot of startups. Your advice to founders, while they're building. You've also been a founder, more importantly, right? So I think a lot of your thesis comes from understanding the finer aspects of executing on the ground, right? What are some of your tips, advices for founders?
So I think one tip is that if you have an idea, just think through it really deeply. Is it really solving the right problem? Look at multiple contexts, right? I mean, it could be a problem had been a problem 2 years ago, but maybe not a big challenge today. So you have to be in present times, right? And alter your thought for the current times and see if it is a large problem that you're solving, and something which is not, looking at the overall ecosystem today, I think there are 2 ways, right? Either you go too niche, and one is to go for a larger market, right? I feel that in today's time, going for a larger market makes a lot more sense. Going for extremely niche products with small market sizes, etc., it makes it really difficult to succeed, right, or execute. So if you're a new founder, at least look at a large market size, or at least in a large ecosystem. Even if there's a niche product, then what is the market size for that? It has to be significantly large for you to succeed in today's world, right? So don't go for a very small niche problem where the market size is only about $50 million or $100 million, right? It makes no
Right.
sense. So you need to go for markets which are at least $5 billion plus, at least, right? I mean, that is where you can add some value and hit the right chord, even with investors or from a scaling up perspective. So I see when I mentor or look at and talk to a lot of startups, they're looking at very small problems, issues, not a large market size. So scaling becomes an issue. So think
Right.
of scaling from day one. I think that's one big advice I'd have for everyone.
Sahil, thank you so much for taking the time out. It's always very, very exciting to speak with you. I think the positivity that you bring in today's environment is amazing, right? And I think also the fact that this belief that this is going to end and markets are going to come back to normal, works as an important element in how we think and conceive of things, right? And also brings in a lot of hope, right? Thank you so much for taking the time out. It was a pleasure
Thank
having you
you.
with us.
Yes, had a great time. Thank you.
Thanks, Sahil.